A billionaire hid his true identity, pretending to be just a driver, but what he discovered at the end left everyone speechless. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Benjamin Carter was one of the richest men in New York City. He owned hotels, restaurants, shopping malls, and luxury cars. People admired him, envied him, and sometimes even feared him. But with all his wealth and fame, Benjamin was unhappy. His problem was not money. His problem was love. Every time he tried to date a woman, he noticed the same thing. They were more interested in his wallet than in his heart. They smiled at his expensive gifts, not at his jokes. They wanted his cars, not his company. They wanted the billionaire, not the man. One evening, after another disappointing dinner date, Benjamin sat alone in his penthouse apartment. The city lights sparkled outside his tall glass windows, but he felt empty. He poured himself a glass of water, leaned back in his chair, and whispered to himself, "If I don't find someone who loves me for who I am, I will never know true happiness." That night, he came up with a plan, an unusual plan. Instead of showing women his wealth, he would hide it. Instead of being the billionaire in the spotlight, he would act like someone ordinary. And that was when the idea came to him. I will pretend to be a driver. The next morning, Benjamin stood in front of his mirror. Instead of wearing his usual tailored suits, he put on a plain black jacket, faded jeans, and a simple baseball cap. He even wore cheap sneakers to complete the look. His reflection surprised him. He no longer looked like the powerful CEO who owned half the city. He looked like a regular man struggling to make ends meet. To make his act believable, Benjamin chose one of his less noticeable cars, a black SUV. It was clean and comfortable, but nothing flashy like his Lamborghini or Rolls-Royce. He polished the steering wheel with a small smile. "Perfect," he muttered. By noon, Benjamin was standing at the airport terminal, holding a white card with a name written on it, Miss Lauren. He had arranged for 3 different women to meet him in the coming days. None of them knew he was the billionaire. They only knew they had been offered a free ride to their hotel by a driver. As passengers walked past him with their suitcases, Benjamin's heart raced. For the first time in years, he wasn't being noticed as the famous billionaire. To everyone, he was just another driver waiting for his client. And deep inside, Benjamin whispered to himself, "If a woman can respect me like this, without knowing my money, my cars, or my power, then maybe I've finally found someone real." The test had begun. Benjamin stood at the airport terminal, holding the sign that read Miss Lauren. His heart beat steadily as he scanned the faces of passengers rolling their suitcases out of the arrival gate. Then he saw her. Lauren was impossible to miss. She had long blonde hair that swung over her shoulders and wore a bright red designer dress that clung to her tall figure. Diamond earrings sparkled in her ears, and her heels clicked sharply against the airport floor. People turned to look at her, admiring her confidence and beauty. Lauren's eyes landed on Benjamin, and she frowned slightly as if surprised. "You must be the driver?" she asked, her tone not warm but commanding. Benjamin gave a polite nod and a small smile. "Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Let me help you with your bag." Before he could even touch it, Lauren pushed her heavy suitcase toward him. "Careful with that. It's expensive," she said, adjusting her sunglasses. Benjamin lifted the suitcase with ease and placed it gently in the trunk of the SUV. Then, like a true gentleman, he opened the back door for her. But Lauren didn't notice. She was already on her phone, scrolling quickly with her perfectly manicured nails. She slid into the back seat without even a "thank you." As Benjamin started the engine, he glanced in the rearview mirror. Lauren was leaning back, speaking loudly into her phone. "Ugh, I'm finally here. And yes, they sent me a driver," she said, rolling her eyes as if the idea amused her. "He looks so ordinary. Anyway, I'll text you when I get to the hotel. Don't forget about the party tonight." Benjamin kept his eyes on the road. Her words stung a little, but he reminded himself that this was part of the test. He wanted to see how she truly treated people she believed were beneath her. Halfway through the drive, Benjamin asked softly, "Would you like me to adjust the air conditioning, ma'am? It's a warm day." Lauren sighed loudly, as if he had disturbed her. "No, just drive. And please, don't talk unless I ask you something." Benjamin gripped the steering wheel tighter. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. The ride continued in silence, except for Lauren's non-stop phone conversations. She laughed loudly, bragged about her trip, and even complained about the car. "It's not as comfortable as I expected," she muttered, clearly loud enough for Benjamin to hear. Finally, they arrived at the luxury hotel. Benjamin parked carefully and got out to retrieve her suitcase. Lauren stepped out slowly, still talking on her phone. Without looking at him, she pulled a few coins from her purse and dropped them into his hand. "Here, driver. Buy yourself some coffee," she said carelessly before walking toward the hotel entrance. Benjamin stood there quietly, the coins resting in his palm. For a moment, he just watched her disappear into the grand hotel lobby. Then he whispered to himself, "She has failed the test." With a small sigh, he closed the trunk, got back into the driver's seat, and drove away, already preparing for the second woman he would meet the next day. Early the next morning, he washed the black SUV, checked the tires, and placed a small card on the dashboard with the next name, Ms. Monica Hale. By 8:30 a.m., he stood in the arrival hall again, holding the sign. Travelers hurried past with coffee cups and carry-ons. Right on time, a woman in a sharp navy suit walked toward him with quick, confident steps. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun. She rolled a slim black suitcase with one hand and held a phone to her ear with the other. She stopped in front of him and glanced at her watch. "You're late," she said. Benjamin looked at his own watch. He was 5 minutes early, but he kept his voice calm. "I'm here for Ms. Monica Hale. Welcome. May I take your bag?" "It has a laptop," she replied, not answering the welcome. "Don't scratch it." She ended her call, handed him the suitcase, and stepped toward the exit without waiting for him to lead. Benjamin loaded the bag carefully, opened the rear door, and she slid in, already tapping on her phone. "Destination?" he asked gently. "Midtown Law Center," she said. "Use the expressway. And please, no small talk. I have to prepare for a meeting." "Of course," he said, merging into traffic. For several minutes, the car was quiet except for the steady sound of rain starting on the windshield. Monica typed notes and read them back to herself in a firm voice. Then, without looking up, she began asking questions, fast, sharp, like a cross-examination. "How long have you been driving?" 2 years, Benjamin said. "Full-time?" "Yes." "What do you earn per week?" Benjamin kept his eyes on the road. "It depends on the hours and tips." "Benefits?" she pressed. "Health insurance? Retirement?" "No, ma'am." She clicked her tongue. "That's the problem with jobs like this. No growth. No safety. Why do people choose it?" Benjamin didn't answer. He signaled and changed lanes to avoid a slow truck. A cyclist cut in front of the SUV, and Benjamin braked smoothly. Monica looked up, annoyed. "Can we not have surprises?" "Time is money," she said. "If I'm late, it hurts my case." "I understand," he said. "There's a traffic buildup ahead. I can take an alternate route through Park Avenue. It may save 8 minutes." She shook her head. "No. Stay on my route. I don't want to experiment." They continued. The rain grew heavier. Monica suddenly said, "Pull over at that cafe. I need a latte." 5 minutes. Benjamin eased to the curb. "We might cut it close, ma'am." "I'll be quick," she said and hurried inside. 5 minutes became 12. Benjamin watched the clock and the rain. He didn't complain. When Monica returned, she carried 2 cups, but both were for her. She placed one in a cup holder and held the other in her hand, then dropped a pile of napkins onto the floor mat. "Throw those out later," she said. "And, do you have a phone charger?" "Yes." He passed a cable over the seat. She plugged in her phone and began another call. "Hi, Noah. I'm in a car. Yes, a regular driver. If I'm late, it's because he took the long route." She gave Benjamin a pointed look in the mirror. "Send the printouts to the office." As they neared Midtown, the rain eased. Benjamin turned down the radio traffic report out of respect for her call and navigated carefully to the glass tower marked Midtown Law Center. He stopped beneath the awning so she wouldn't get wet. "We've arrived," he said, stepping out to open her door. He took her suitcase from the trunk and set it upright beside her. Monica checked the time again. Finally, she handed the charging cable back without a word of thanks and pointed at the bag. "Be careful. The laptop is worth more than your monthly pay." Benjamin nodded once. "Have a successful meeting, ma'am. Send the receipt to my assistant," she said, already walking toward the revolving door. She didn't look back. The door spun. She vanished into the lobby. Benjamin stood quietly for a moment, listening to the soft drip of rain from the awning. He thought about the questions she asked. None of them were truly about him. They were about money, status, and speed. She hadn't seen a person in the driver's seat, only a tool to get her somewhere. He placed the cable back in the glove box, straightened the simple cap on his head, and wrote a note in the small notebook he kept beside him. "Monica, brilliant mind, no kindness. Failed." He closed the notebook and started the engine. On the passenger seat lay tomorrow's card with a new name in neat black letters, Grace Miller. He didn't know her yet, but as he pulled into traffic, a quiet hope rose in him. "Maybe," he said under his breath, "the third time will be different." The next morning, Benjamin woke before sunrise. The city was still quiet. He brewed a small cup of coffee, then took the elevator down to the garage and walked straight to the black SUV. He wiped a faint line of dust from the hood, checked the mirrors, and placed the card for the day on the dashboard. Grace Miller. He sat behind the wheel for a moment and breathed in. After Lauren and Monica, his heart felt heavier, but not closed. He whispered, "Let today be different," started the engine, and drove to the arrivals terminal. By 8:45 a.m., he stood with the white name card in his hand. Travelers poured out in waves. People hugged, children ran, suitcase wheels rattled across the tiles. Benjamin scanned the crowd, and then he saw her. Grace didn't arrive like a storm. She arrived like a calm morning. She wore a light blue dress and a simple gray sweater. Her hair was pulled back loosely, and her eyes were warm. She carried a canvas tote with a little paper tag attached to the handle that read, "Room 12, Class Supplies." She spotted the sign and smiled at once. "Hi, I'm Grace Miller. Thank you for waiting," she said, shifting the tote to her shoulder. "You're welcome, ma'am," Benjamin said, reaching for her suitcase. "It's not heavy," she said, laughing softly. "But thank you." She still let him take it, not to show power, but to accept kindness. Then she added, "And please, ma'am, makes me feel like a grandmother. You can call me Grace." Benjamin blinked. "All right, Grace." Outside, the sky was overcast, the kind that could turn to rain without asking. He opened the rear door for her, but she paused, glanced at the front seat, and said, "Would it be okay if I sit in front? I get car sick if I sit too far back." "Of course," Benjamin said, surprised but pleased. He watched her settle into the passenger seat like a friend, not a boss, then pulled into traffic. "Destination?" he asked. "Riverside Hostel on 42nd, she said. "It's near the teacher conference center. I'm here for a week, training and classroom planning." She lifted the tote. "I teach 3rd grade." Benjamin nodded. "That sounds important." "It is to me," she said. "Kids remember the adults who see them. At least I did." She glanced at his hands on the wheel. "Is the steering okay? It looks like it pulls a little left." He smiled. "You have sharp eyes. It's fine, just the road." They drove in easy silence for a minute. Then Grace opened her tote and pulled out a small lunchbox. "I brought extra sandwiches. Peanut butter and jelly. Not fancy, but honest. Would you like one?" Benjamin hesitated. No one had ever offered him food in the car. "Thank you," he said, accepting it. The bread was soft, the peanut butter just a little salty, and the jelly sweet. He folded the napkin neatly. "Best thing I've had this week." Grace grinned. "I'll tell my students. They think I make the best lunch on earth." A light rain began to fall. Benjamin clicked the wipers on low. A gust of wind carried a thin mist through the half-open window and dotted his sleeve. Grace noticed at once. "Oh, your arm," she said, grabbing the knit scarf around her neck and holding it out.
"Here.
"Dry off with this." "I'm okay," Benjamin said. She shook her head.
"Please."
"No one catches a cold on my watch." Her tone was gentle, but firm. He accepted the scarf and dabbed his sleeve dry. It smelled like laundry soap and a hint of vanilla. Traffic slowed near an intersection where an elderly man with a cane tried to cross against the light. Horns blared. Lauren would have complained. Monica would have called it a delay. Grace leaned forward, steady and soft. "Take your time," she said. "He needs a minute." Benjamin waited. The wipers ticked. The man made it to the sidewalk. Grace let out a breath and sat back. "People hurry so much in this city," she said. "Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is choose not to rush." A street vendor waved from the curb with a tray of pretzels and bottles of water. Grace patted her pockets. "Do you mind if I get water for both of us? I'll be quick." "You don't have to," Benjamin said. "I want to," she replied, already halfway out with her tote. She bought 2 waters and handed one to Benjamin. "For the sandwich you bravely tried," she joked, buckling up again. "Thank you," he said, touched by the easy way she shared. They turned on to 42nd. Riverside Hostel appeared, clean, modest, with a bright blue awning and a chalkboard by the door that read, "Welcome Teachers." Benjamin pulled beneath the awning so Grace wouldn't get rained on, then stepped out to retrieve her suitcase. He set it upright, handle extended. "Here we are," he said. Grace opened her wallet and paused. "What's the fare?" she asked. "It's covered," Benjamin said, following his original plan. "Part of the conference hospitality." "Even if the ride is covered, your time isn't," she replied, placing a folded bill in his hand. "Please accept it. And thank you for driving safely." He glanced down and saw she hadn't thrown coins. She had given a fair tip, quietly, with respect. "Thank you, Grace," he said, closing his hand around the bill without looking at the amount. She tilted her head. "Can I ask your name? I keep calling you you." He felt a tug in his chest. No one had asked all week. "Ben," he said. It was true enough. "Nice to meet you, Ben," she said. "If you're the one who picks me up on Friday, I'll bring you a better sandwich. Maybe turkey and cheese, with real mustard." He laughed, the sound surprised and warm. "I'd like that." Grace started toward the hostel door, then turned back as the rain thickened. She held out her scarf again.
"Keep it," she said.
"You can return it Friday." "Are you sure?" "It looks kinder on you than on my suitcase," she teased. Benjamin folded the scarf over his forearm like a small promise. "I'll take good care of it." "I'm sure you will," she said and went inside. The door closed. The street noise returned. Benjamin stood beneath the blue awning with the scarf and the bottle of water in his hand. He felt something he hadn't felt since he wrote the first card, hope that didn't have to be whispered. He slid back into the driver's seat and opened his small notebook. Grace, kindness without effort. Sees people.
Past.
He underlined the last word slowly once. Then he set the notebook down, touched the scarf, and looked out at the rain, already thinking about how to end the test with honesty and dignity for everyone involved. On Friday afternoon, Benjamin pulled the black SUV beneath the blue awning of Riverside Hostel. The rain had stopped, and the city felt washed and new. He still had Grace's soft scarf folded on the seat beside him. The hostel door opened, and Grace stepped out with the same calm smile he remembered. She wore a simple white blouse and a navy skirt. In her tote sat a stack of folders tied with string. "There's my driver," she said lightly, then laughed. "And my scarf." Benjamin held it out. "Kept it safe, just like I promised." "Good," she said, tying it loosely around her tote handle. "And as promised, turkey and cheese. Real mustard." She lifted a small paper bag. "Don't judge my folding." He didn't. He took a bite while she buckled in. The bread was fresh, the mustard bright. "Perfect," he said, and meant it. They drove through late-day sunlight. Grace told him about the training, how teachers shared ideas freely, how a shy young man had stood up and read his first lesson plan without shaking. She spoke with pride, not about herself, but about others. When they reached the conference center, Benjamin eased to the curb. "Grace," he said, careful with his words, "there's a guest appreciation dinner tomorrow night at a hotel in Midtown. My company is hosting it to thank people who visited the city this week. It would be nice to see you there." She tilted her head. "Your company?" He nodded once. "I help with the arrangements sometimes." Grace studied his face, not suspicious, just thoughtful. "Okay," she said finally. "Text me the time and address. I'll come, if I can bring a small thank you card for the driver, who has been very kind to me all week." Benjamin smiled. "I'll make sure he gets it." That evening, he gave 2 more calls. One to Lauren, one to Monica. The invitation came from the hotel concierge, not from the driver. It was simple and polite, a private dinner to thank special guests. Saturday, 7 p.m. He also briefed his staff. No gossip, no pointing. Kindness first. If anyone looked ashamed, make space for dignity. Saturday arrived crisp and clear. The ballroom at the Carter Grand Hotel glittered under glass chandeliers. Soft jazz drifted from a trio near the stage. Round tables wore white linen and small vases of pale roses. At one corner, a long table held cards that read welcome in neat handwriting. Benjamin entered quietly at 6:40 p.m., not in a cap and jacket, but in a dark suit. Staff nodded with respect. He nodded back and asked for the lights to be gentle, not harsh. "We're not trying to trap anyone," he reminded the manager. "We're telling the truth." By 6:55, guests arrived in small groups. At 6:58, Monica strode in, exact on time. Her suit was charcoal this time, the cut perfect. She scanned the room, accepted a program from a host, and chose a table near the front. She began reading emails while she waited. At 7:02, Lauren swept through the doors in gold. She paused to be seen, then found a seat as if the room belonged to her. She waved a waiter over and requested sparkling water with lime, extra cold. At 7:06, Grace slipped in, a simple blue dress and a cardigan over her shoulders. She paused at the entrance, not to be seen but to look. She noticed the roses, the trio, the way the waiters kept the aisles open. She smiled at the hostess, took her welcome card with a quiet thank you, and chose a table near the middle. When a waiter passed, Grace asked where the kitchen door was so she wouldn't block it with her chair. Benjamin watched for a moment from the side door. He saw 3 women, 3 ways of entering a room. Then he took a breath and walked to the small stage. The room softened when he reached the microphone. A few staff straightened. The trio finished their song. "Good evening," Benjamin said, voice even. "I'm Benjamin Carter. Thank you for joining me." Heads turned. A whisper rippled. "Carter. The owner." Lauren sat up straighter. Monica lowered her phone. Grace's expression shifted from surprise to a thoughtful calm. Benjamin continued, "Some of you met one of our drivers this week. You may know him as Ben." He let the name sit for a heartbeat. "Ben is me." A low, surprised murmur moved across the tables. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Monica's pen froze over her notebook. Grace's fingers rested on the edge of her place card. "I've been looking for something," Benjamin said simply. "A person who sees people. I wanted to know how others treat someone they don't need to impress. So, I did a small test. I wore a cap. I drove a less flashy car. I held a sign at the airport." He didn't look at anyone in particular when he spoke next.
He looked at the room.
"One of you laughed at the idea of a driver and tossed coins without eye contact. One of you measured every minute, every mile, and every person by cost. One of you offered a sandwich and a scarf and asked my name." Silence settled. No music covered it. A waiter paused with a tray. Benjamin's voice stayed kind. "I am not here to shame anyone. We all have days we wish we could replay. But I promised myself I would end this test with honesty and dignity." He stepped off the stage and walked to the table where Lauren sat. He kept his tone gentle. "Miss Lauren, you are confident and bright. But a thank you weighs less than a coin and means more." He placed a small hotel envelope on the table. Inside is a voucher for a donation in your name to a hospitality school, if you choose to use it. Teaching respect changes more futures than tip money. Lauren's cheeks colored. For a moment, pride battled with understanding in her eyes. She said nothing. She only looked at the envelope and then at her glass. Benjamin turned to Monica's table. Ms. Hale, I admire people who fight for what is right. Law needs strong voices. But strength and kindness are not enemies. He handed her a slim card. This is a free legal seminar we sponsor for service workers. If you have 2 hours next month, they would learn a lot from you. Monica blinked. Her voice, when it came, was quieter than he had heard it all week. I can make 2 hours, she said. I can make more. Thank you, Benjamin said and meant it. Finally, he walked to Grace's table. He didn't hand her an envelope first. He spoke to her, not to the room. Grace, he said softly, you treated the driver like a person. You noticed a sleeve getting wet. You saw an older man crossing the street. You shared your sandwich. You asked my name. Grace's eyes shone, not with tears, but with a steady brightness. Kindness is not a trick, she said. It's just right. I know, Benjamin replied. He reached into his jacket and took out a folded paper, the kind used for school announcements. You labeled your tote with room 12, class supplies. May I help fill room 12? Books, notebooks, art paper, tablets, whatever your students need. Grace covered her mouth for a second, surprised. Then she lowered her hand. If we accept, it won't be for me, she said carefully. It will be for them. For them, Benjamin agreed. And there's more if you allow it. A small library fund in your school's name. And a summer program for any student who needs it. Grace didn't rush to answer. She looked at the roses, the trio, the staff waiting at the walls. She looked back at Benjamin. Yes, she said, simple as a door opening. Thank you. The room breathed again. The trio began a gentle tune. Waiters moved with quiet relief. People started to speak in low voices, not about wealth, but about what they had felt. Lauren stood. For a moment, it seemed she might leave. Instead, she picked up the envelope and walked to a waiter. Where do I sign for that school donation? She asked. Her voice had a new shape, less sharp, more human. Monica rose and came to Benjamin. I'm sorry about the car, she said. About the way I spoke. I know better. I forgot myself. Benjamin nodded once. Thank you for saying that. After dinner, Benjamin stepped into the hallway outside the ballroom for a breath. The city sounded near through the revolving door. Horns, laughter, footsteps. He felt a light touch on his elbow. Grace stood there with a small card in her hand. For your driver, she said, smiling. I wrote it yesterday before I knew. It's still true. He opened it. The handwriting was clear. Thank you for driving me safely. Thank you for seeing people on the road, especially the ones who move slowly. You reminded me that kindness is also a direction. Grace. He folded the card and put it carefully in his inside pocket, next to his heart. Would you like to see the rooftop garden? He asked. It's quiet up there. No chandeliers. They rode the elevator up. Wind brushed the lights of the city. Boxes of herbs lined the edge, mint, basil, rosemary, and low strings of bulbs cast a soft gold. They walked without hurry. I should say I'm surprised, Grace said, with a small laugh. But mostly I'm not. The way you watch traffic, the way you listened, a man who pays attention like that is rarely ordinary. I am trying to be honest, Benjamin said. And to ask you something, honestly. She waited. I would like to see you again. Not as a driver and a passenger. As Benjamin and Grace. Maybe a walk by the river. Maybe a bookstore. No rush. No show. Grace looked at the city, then at him. We can start with a walk, she said. And you can carry the heavy books. I can do that, he said, smiling. They stood together by the rosemary, the city humming far below, the test finally over. He was still a billionaire. She was still a teacher. But in that quiet place, they were simply two people choosing the same direction. And down in the ballroom, a waiter picked up a stray coin from under a chair, placed it on the table, and wrote a small note on the bill. Thank you for coming. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.